Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm David Kerr from Lansing in Michigan, and these are your latest news headlines from around the world. The US Congress has advanced a funding bill for the next year which does not include the usual prohibitions on funding abortion. On Thursday, the House Appropriations Committee approved a funding bill for the Department of Health and Human Services, Labour and Education. That bill, however, does not include the so-called Hyde Amendment. That's a 45-year-old federal policy that prohibits the funding of most elective abortions within the US healthcare system, Medicaid. An amendment to then include the Hyde Amendment in the bill also failed by 27 votes to 32. The legislation without the Hyde Amendment ultimately passed the committee by a vote of 33 to 25. In response, the US bishops issued a statement labelling the bill as the most extreme pro-abortion appropriations bill that we have ever seen. A kidnapped priest in the African state of Mali has finally been released. Father Léon Dougnon of the diocese of Mopti was liberated on Tuesday after spending several weeks at the hands of his abductors. He was captured along with 3 others while on his way to a funeral of a brother priest on June the 21st. Father Dougnon's fellow captors were released within days. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the incident. However, the region is frequented by extremist Islamist militants. The first ever International Religious Summit has taken place in Washington, D.C. with the support of the US Catholic Bishops' Conference. The aim of the summit is to provide insights on international religious freedom, to address violations against religious liberty, and to provide support for those who are being persecuted for their faith. The 3-day event was the initiative of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. More than 40 organisations from different religions and different countries took part. Among the co-sponsors was the US Bishops' Committee on International Justice and Peace. Other organisations participating included Aid to the Church in Need and the Knights of Columbus. The conference will now be held on a yearly basis. Pope Francis has expressed his spiritual closeness with those in Western Europe who have been most affected by recent heavy rains and floods. So far, at least 120 people have died and hundreds more are unaccounted for after some of the worst flooding in decades. In Germany, the death toll now stands at over 100. Meanwhile, at least 20 people have died in Belgium. The Netherlands, Luxembourg and Switzerland are also badly affected. In response, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, sent a telegram to the German President, Franz-Walter Steinmeier. In the communique, Cardinal Parolin says that Pope Francis has been deeply affected by the news from Germany. He also noted that the Pope was praying for the people who have lost their lives, and especially for the people who are still missing and for the wounded. The Holy Father, he added, is profoundly participating in the sorrows of grieving families who have lost their loved ones. Meanwhile, the Patriarch of the Chaldean Catholic Church in Iraq has expressed his condolences and solidarity with those who have lost loved ones in a recent hospital fire in the southern city of Nasiriyah. The blaze at the Al Hussein Hospital broke out on July the 12th in the building's COVID isolation ward. Faulty construction and inadequate safety procedures involving oxygen cylinders are currently being blamed. So far, the fire has claimed 92 lives. Cardinal Luis Rafael Sacco expressed a hope that this national catastrophe may awaken the conscience of Iraqi officials to stop infighting as the country attempts to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. He prayed that the authorities may now unite in order to overcome the country's current present health crisis and ensure security, stability and quality services so that disasters like this won't happen again. Bishops in India are to hold a national prayer service for those affected by the COVID pandemic. The apostolic event is being organised by the country's Latin Rite bishops and will take place on August the 7th. They say that the 1-hour service will pray for the departed souls, express solidarity with grieving families and communities, and pray for the health of the world. At present, India is facing a second wave of the pandemic, which has stretched its fragile healthcare system to almost breaking point, with shortages of vaccines, hospital beds, oxygen and other medicines. Meanwhile, cremation and burial grounds are being overwhelmed. On April the 30th, India became the first country to report over 400,000 new cases of COVID-19 in a 24-hour period. Finally, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines is organising a 3-day online event to mark the World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly on July the 25th. The virtual National Conference of Grandparents and the Elderly will be held from July the 22nd to the 24th. Those 3 days will witness online presentations and reflections on the relevance of grandparents and the elderly in sustaining both Christian faith and values within the family. In January, Pope Francis announced the launch of the World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly, to be held every year on the fourth Sunday of July, close to the feast of Christ's grandparents, St. Joachim and St. Anne. Well, that's your latest headlines. Do join us for more tomorrow. You can also visit us at swnews.org for news updates. Shalom.